What are some tiny details in the Diablo 4 gameplay trailer for the Barbarian you may have missed? Back in November during BlizzCon 2019, we witnessed many videos showcasing the then current builds of each of the 3 currently playable classes in Diablo 4, all of which running the same quest available in Glen. A lot happened in a very short amount of time and was very easily missable if you weren't paying attention. So, at the request of many of you, to keep things interesting, we'll be examining the Barbarian on a different quest route than the Druid, while keeping the same mindset on items, locations, fauna, and skills from a mechanical and lore perspective. So here's a breakdown of everything you may have missed in the Barbarian gameplay trailer for Diablo 4.
No turning back now.
Once again, we find ourselves in the Korbach Crypts, an undead repository in Glen beneath an old ruined Zakarum Cathedral on a hill to the south of Korbach. One immediate call out, noticeably different between the Druid and Barbarian, is the utilization of resources. Whereas the Druid starts out with full spirit, allowing for immediate use of abilities like Pulverize, the Barbarian requires starting off combat with resource generators, in this case using the Frenzy ability, before using other abilities like Upheaval to deal immense damage to larger crowds. Eventually visible, however, is the lack of fury loss over a period of time of disuse, which was a function of the Barbarian in Diablo 3 unless you had proper passive skills equipped. Given this is a level 20 character, that might indeed be a thing, but it's too early to tell. Shortly up ahead, in the same spot as we saw with the Druid, drops a legendary amulet known as Asidora's Overflowing Cameo, which reads, "The only thing more potent than Asidora's magic was her endless hatred of humanity. As she lay dying, the pale amulet around her neck drank in both." This amulet creates small lightning traps dealing localized area effect lightning damage over a period of time. In terms of who and why, this is the first time we hear of Isidora being referenced. Maybe we'll get some more information later. At the end of the crypts, the Barbarian unleashes his ultimate ability, Wrath of the Berserker, which transforms the Barbarian into a raging behemoth, glowing veins like lava and wild white hair. Okay, he basically goes Super Saiyan. It even creates a localized area blast that completely obliterates weaker enemies and increases attack speed and damage periodically the more fury you spend. This ability, of course, returning from Diablo 3 and shows that deep, powerful Nephilim connection to Bul Kathos and the Ancients. Outside the crypts. As the Barbarian leaves the crypts and makes his way back to Korbach, prior to him dispatching 3 ghouls with Upheaval, we are able to take notice of the aforementioned loss of fury over time from lack of use. Again, this is a feature of the Barbarian in Diablo 3 meant to demonstrate the ebb and flow of a Barbarian's rage, built up in combat but wanes in times of inaction. The Bruce-bannered Barbarian passes through Korbach, this time not engaging with the chieftain nor a course, and moving onwards to the northern area of Cain Adar. Again, we see here an example of seamless exploration, where a 3D obstacle is implemented to transition from one area to another and is used in both local areas and in map transitions, whether in open world or dungeons. On the upper platform of Cain Adar, there the Barbarian squares off with the Khazra, the goatmen's scourge of Sanctuary. These goatmen, which have been shown to be followers of Lilith or perhaps even servants of her cultists, are a returning obstacle in Diablo 4 and make up one of the many family units that encompass the themes surrounding the monsters breakdown therein. Descending back down into the Loch Raeth Highlands, we see after heading back up a traversal point, another shout out to what one could only assume is a shrine to Vasily. With his long fur pelt draped over his shoulders, the constant appearance of statues like this of the ancients shows the reverence of the people for this figure, who founded their culture over 4,000 years before the events of Diablo 4 in what is best known as a holy site for the Druids. Pressing on, the Barbarian heads into another pack of Khazra, building up his fury with frenzy and using Upheaval to enact a little crowd control, and even displaying another ability returning from Diablo 2 and 3, fan favorite, Leap, which acts as both a traversal easement and damaging ability, tossing the Barbarian into the fray and closing the gap between the enemies and ranged attackers. Not long after, we also see a demonstration of Rallying Cry, which increases movement speed, reduces damage, and grants the user the Unstoppable status, which prevents and removes controlling effects like slow and stun. And finally, we see the use of Rupture against a Khazra Mauler, which deals massive damage in a straight line. All of these abilities are a great display of the Barbarian's arsenal system, which allows them to equip up to 4 weapons, 2 one-handed weapons and 2 two-handed weapons, each of which are focused on by individual skills and allow the Barbarian to really show their martial prowess, having multiple weapons being used for various purposes, instead of just one weapon used for multiple purposes and conjuring magical weapons out of thin air like a giant hammer. Like, long after, all of this is blended together, augmented by Wrath of the Berserker. In the Corrupted Shrine area event, the full-on destruction power of the Barbarian class is put on display, and they make quick work of the Goatmen, who use their vile magics to bring demonic influence to the area of Skosglen. And they get a penchant for pinching children. Now, while this is a very physically intense fight, it's not without its toll. The potion system is also on display here, which, while its construct during these demonstrations was centered around the Diablo 3 use of a timed potion, we can see that there is a stack of potions being utilized. So with a reduced reuse time, there is still a finite usage of potions allowed. Now, it should go to note that the developers have discussed using a different potion build system in the final product, so we'll see how that will transition in time. After the event champion is felled, the Corrupted Shrine reverts to a standard shrine and grants a boon to the player in form of heal on hit effect as a reward for their efforts. Heading into a nearby cavern known as Domhain Tunnels, we're given a very simple quest objective: kill everything. I mean, you don't have to ask us twice. Scores of Blood Clan marauders, maulers, impalas, and shamans stand between the Barbarian and the end of the tunnels. Shamans heal and resurrect their fallen kin, as in other games, in a very magnanimous way. Partway through, we encounter another Corrupted Shrine event, which goes very similarly to how the one we encountered out in Kain-Adar, with several waves of goatmen spawning to force our focus off the demonic shrine, and culminates in the destruction of a champion and a boon at the end. We see several uses yet again of the dash function, which again makes its return from the Diablo 3 console version, working into the interface of both PC and console variants of Diablo 4 and adding a kinetic element to combat. Further ahead, we encounter a Blood Clan mauler named Burzog, the War Leader, who sports the Frozen Affix, creating small freeze traps which explode and freeze you in place. A returning affix from Diablo 3 and well annoying. During the fight with Burzog the War Leader, 2 runes drop. The Dol rune we discussed in our Druid video, but we also see the Vex rune, which is a condition rune activated by the use of a healing potion, which compared to its counterpart in Diablo 2, which grants a 7% mana stolen on hit when socketed into a weapon, or 5% increase to the maximum fire resist when placed into other pieces of gear, is kind of a sad transition really, but who knows what the full scope of the rune word system will yet bring. It should be noted, given how early we're seeing a Vex rune, which was part of the rune word combination of the coveted Heart of the Oak, it's likely we won't see rune words to that degree, which decreases the possibility they become the meta and overshadow legendary sets or mythics. Burzog also drops a dagger, which appears to be a quest update, which we will revisit later on. Rounding out the quest to slay everyone in the tunnels brings us 2 more ultra creatures which have mortar affix to rain fire upon us as we work them down slowly. After we finish off the remaining goatmen, the tunnels glow bright, and a callback to the Den of Evil from Diablo 2, which is a nice little nod.
My duty here is done.
Moving around the town of Korbach, we head over to Kayla the Hunter, whose concept art gave rise to thoughts on the possibility of a hunter class, which panned out to be just an NPC. Along with the quest update for A Light in the Dark, we see a slight overview of the skills and talents of the Barbarian. As covered in a recent video on the latest quarterly update, the skill and talent trees are being reworked from what we saw at BlizzCon 2019. But here, we see again many returning abilities like Call of the Ancients, which summoned the 3 Ancients from Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction, Korlik, Talik, and Madork. Madork? Oh man, that's really going to haunt me. And Whirlwind, which, well, you know how that goes. We also see that there is no shield slot in the Barbarian's arsenal, displaying a lack of focus on the defensive fighting style, which has been seen in Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. So perhaps the sword and board archetype is yet to come. Time will tell. Oh, fingers crossed for the Pally baby or Crusader. Just give me a holy warrior. Love of God. Also, in the talent tree, we see an overall focus on physical prowess, both offensive and defensively, with small boosts to supportive abilities like shouts and fury generation here and there. Well, that's it for the video. If you enjoyed, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Smash the notification bell like you've been possessed by Whirlwind. And of course, join us on Discord. We're nearly 500 members strong and will help carry you through Diablo 4. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, Traveler.